I don't have to solve self-doubt because you can't in a lot of cases. All I have to do is turn it down enough to allow me to do the action. We have a phrase in recovery, don't allow yourself to get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, because that will manifest for you as wanting to drink. And so I think we can look at this same thing. Sometimes we just need to take care of the physical stuff that's going on.
That's Eric Zimmer. At 24, Eric was homeless, addicted to heroin, and facing prison. His journey from those depths sparked his lifelong inquiry into human transformation. Since then, he's guided thousands worldwide in creating sustainable habits that last through steady change. His podcast, The One You Feed, is amazing, and today he's sharing some wisdom from his newest book, How a Little Becomes a Lot: The Art of Small Changes for a More Meaningful Life. So you'll learn 1, why most change efforts fail; 2, how to talk yourself into choosing the right thing; and 3, the 6 ways we self-sabotage and how to stop them. And if you want a quick summary write-up of the actionable wisdom that Eric shares, I recommend you sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter found at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Makaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Eric. Eric, welcome back.
Thanks, Pete. I'm really happy to be here. Years later.
Yeah, well, it was wild. 1,000 episodes ago, we chatted. In the meantime, you've been doing some really cool stuff. So I'm excited to talk about how a little becomes a lot. Could you kick us off by sharing, what do you think is among the most fascinating or surprising or counterintuitive discoveries you've made as you've been learning these lessons and researching and packaging them into this book?
Well, I think the first one is the idea that small change is what matters. So I start the book with a story that I think illustrates it well. And if you were filming the movie of my life, you would see a really pivotal scene where I walk into a treatment center in 1994 in Columbus, Ohio, and it's the dead of winter. I'm a homeless heroin addict. I weigh 100 pounds. I'm jaundiced and I'm yellow from hepatitis C. Prosecutor says I might be going to jail for 50 years. I'm just really broken. And I go in and they say, we think you need to go to long-term treatment. To which I say, no, thank you. And I go back to my room and I have what we call in recovery a moment of clarity, which I could say was more like just being scared to death when I looked at what was coming, right? Because I was just like, I'm going to jail or to die, and soon. And so I went back out and I said, all right, I'll go to your treatment. And that would be the really big pivotal moment. The director would spend a lot of time there. You know, the music would swell in the background, triumphant. Exactly. And it's not that that moment wasn't important. Of course it was. But that moment has significance because it was followed by thousands upon thousands of little decisions, little actions that I made after that to move towards recovery and away from addiction. If I didn't do those things, that would just be yet another failed attempt. And so I think when we think about changing, we all want to make the big change that will change things quickly. It'll change them for good. You know, we think about the epiphany or the watershed moment or this thing, and those things are useful, but a lot of big change efforts fail because nobody is really understanding that it has to happen little bit by little bit. And we could go into 1,000 different examples of that, but that's the core principle that underlies a lot of the book.
Yes, well said. In terms of if you had a moment of clarity, you showed up for a moment or a few days of rehab, and then that was in relapse, then it's interesting that that moment doesn't seem as consequential without the future ahead of it.
Yeah. And I mean, and frankly, that moment came about because of lots and lots of little small moments before that where I did make attempts to change, right? You know, I mean, all of those were important too. And we tend to think of, when we go to change something, we tend to think of just the action piece of it. And the action piece is part of it. But if you look at models in behavior science around change, you recognize, and the most famous one is called the stages of change model, right? Where you go through pre-contemplation, then you're going through contemplation. You're thinking, should I make this change? Is it worth it? Then you're doing planning before you actually even get to the activity. And so this book is really trying to show all of those mechanisms and how we can get better at both making change. That's the first half of the book. And then the second half of the book is how do we get better at working with the sort of changes that life just tends to throw our way that we don't really like?
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Well, then, lay it on us in terms of when we want to make changes, how do we do it better? And can you keep illustrating it with real changes made?
Sure. I mean, let's just pick something like you want to get an exercise routine. The way most people do it is they one day wake up and they go, all right, I'm going to get in better shape. Now, oftentimes this is just a vague idea for a while, right? Maybe you go to the gym occasionally, you take a walk occasionally, but nothing's really happening. So I would say, we're kind of in the contemplation stage there, right? We're thinking about it. We might be taking certain things that we're doing, but we're not really making progress. And so the first thing is the book walks through it is to sort of accept and understand the little by little approach. Then what we need to figure out is like, why are we changing? Like, what is it that we're changing and why does it matter? We really do need to be motivated to do it and understand why it's important to us. How does it tie into the things that are most important to us in life? And then from there, I have a method in the book called the SPAR method, where we go through and we plan the change out. We get very, very specific, and we can go into that in more detail if you would like. And then the next piece is we learn to navigate the moments that are difficult. So if I do the work right in the planning phase, I get pushed to what I call a choice point. It's the moment where you basically say, oh yeah, I am going to get on the bike, or I'm going to continue to lay here on the couch. And so the next skill we need to learn is we need to learn how to negotiate those choice points, because if we go the direction we don't want to go, we end up on the couch when the best part of us wants to be on the bike, then it's because we were feeling or thinking something or saying something to ourselves at that moment that we didn't know how to work through. And so then we can look at those moments and find our way and work through them. And that's the basic process of setting up a new positive change. And we can go into any more detail on any aspects of that, but that's the framework broadly.
Well, yeah, let's hear it. Let's work through the SPAR there.
Yeah. So the S stands for specificity. When we're trying to do a new behavior, we need to be really specific about what we're doing. What's the exercise? When am I doing it? How am I doing it? Where am I doing it? All that specificity is important because ambiguity is really often our enemy. Because what happens is we're trying to figure out what to do and do it at the same time. The best example I can give you is that, like, in my day-to-day work, I get off a call and I have an hour and a half window. And now I'm sitting there, I'm going, well, what should I work on? Well, I could work on this and I could work on that, but I should walk. I haven't really moved it much at all today. And I could check this score, and we end up burning a lot of that time because we don't know specifically what we're doing. I know I do much better when I'm like, oh, that hour and a half between the call with Pete and my next conversation, that hour and a half is going towards interview prep for the 2 interviews I need to do on Wednesday. So specificity is always our friend in the beginning. Ambiguity is our enemy. P stands for prompts. It's basically we get reminded to do the thing. Now that sounds sort of silly, but it's not. Like, I've been doing this thing where I'm trying to take a walk about every 30 minutes for 5 minutes. It doesn't always work. You and I are going to talk for 45 minutes. I'm not going to get up in the middle of it. But if I don't remind myself to do it, I just don't do it. If it's the morning and I'm on the couch and at a certain point I need to go get on the exercise bike, and I'm at that moment, I'm doing what I like to do in the morning, oftentimes, which is read Substack. So there I am reading Substack. If I don't have an alarm that tells me it's time to get up and go do it, I'll often go right by it. And then I'll suddenly be like, oh, I only have 15 minutes to do it now. Why bother? So prompts are important. Alignment is about setting up our environment to support us in what we're trying to do. So the simplest example of that in my life is, if you could see over my shoulder, I've got 2 guitars there, and they are sitting out on stands. I play my guitar probably 75% more often when it's on a stand versus in the case laying right there, which makes me feel like like, what kind of dumb animal am I? Like, it takes 5 seconds to open a guitar case. But friction. You said it before we started, thinking about friction, right? If I want to do more of something, I want to make it easier to do. How can I set up my environment, alignment? And a key part of our environment also is other people. So what kind of support do I have? Who's helping me? Who am I sharing this with? Who might help me be accountable to this? And then finally, the R is for resilience, which is where we step back and we go, okay, what could go wrong with this plan? So if I'm walking a client through this, we go through all that, and then I'll say, all right, now let's find the flaws in what we've planned. You can't plan for everything. But if I've got a client who's trying to finish a novel and the plan is to write for an hour after the kids get on the school bus, the thing we have to talk about is what happens when they don't get on the school bus, because that's inevitable. That is going to happen. Now, the answer might be if the kids are homesick, that's just a day I don't write. Okay. But it might be like, oh, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in the room where the kids are, and I'm not going to get any actual real writing done, but I'll use that as research time. Right? We just have a plan. And so that's SPAR: specificity, prompts, alignment, resilience.
Okay. I think about the specificity part, and I think you've nailed it in terms of, oh, hey, I got some quote unquote free time in between my calendared obligations with other humans. And there's a question like, what should I do? And in a way, the answer is infinite in terms of there's billions of things you could do, and maybe dozens of things that would be useful to your general goals and values and priorities. So how do we land at that kind of clarity? Like, of course, I'm preparing for interviews, or of course, I'm writing this book, or I'm getting on the exercise bike.
Well, I mean, I have a section in the book where we kind of start by talking about like, what do we value? Like, what's most important to us? And I have a bunch of different exercises for doing that. And then there is a process of translating that value into action, right? And so I can't give any advice that says like, here is exactly how you always figure out what the most important thing is. Like, as professionals, say in a career, that's part of what we get paid to do. We get paid to look at all the stuff that has to get done, which is always more than can get done. And we're paid to decide which of those things is going to add the most value. But the more often we ask that question, the better, right? The more often we ask that question, the better choices we make. Whereas a lot of times we just run into the default. So if I'm not planning well, what'll happen to me is I'll get off the call and I'll look at my task list. And what ends up usually happening is whatever's easiest to do. And I call this separating decision from action. I want to decide, and then at a different time, I want to act. And what I want is the wisest version of myself deciding what's important to do this week. There's no shortcut for that. There's no shortcut for spending the time to go, like you said, of all the things I could do, what matters here? And then deciding that those are the things that are going to happen and then trying to stick to it.
Yeah.
So there's not a simple answer to that. You know, Stephen Covey in his famous book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said, begin with the end in mind, right? Like, where am I going and why? What matters to me? What's important to me?
Okay. So do you have any thoughts for separating what you, quote, should do from what is in fact truly, deeply, resonantly aligned with your deepest value-ness?
Yeah, I mean, values are hard to figure out. They really are. It's hard work because two things happen, right? One is we're very often just presented a giant list of values to pick from, and you agree with nearly all of them, right? Like you look at it, you're like, well, I value truth. I value honesty. Sure, I value freedom, and I value responsibility, and I value, right? I mean, okay, great. I don't know how to figure that out, right? It's just a giant list. The other reason values work is really difficult is that often as you start to determine what you really do value, you start seeing the gap between what you value and what you do, and that's uncomfortable. But it's good medicine, right? It's the kind of medicine that like tastes bad going down, but is really good for you because that's the only way we end up with a life that feels meaningful to us is to take the time to figure it out. So I'll give you one quick one that's from the book that people could do. It's called Pick a Guide. And it basically says, find somebody that you admire and write down, what is it about them that you admire? Why do you admire them? What are the traits about that person that you value, right? And that'll tell you something about what's important to you, because you've put this person here as somebody that you admire. Why? Why do I admire them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a very simple one. But like I said, there's a bunch of others. And my recommendation is just to do a variety of different values exercises, like, do one today and do another tomorrow and then one next week. And ideally, then we start to triangulate in on what is most important to us. Now, there's an important thing to know, though, which is that in that chapter, I talk about two types of conflicts, right? One is values versus desires. And values are the thing, the way I define a value is it's the thing that the best part of me has decided is worth wanting. Desires are the things you just want. So we have values versus desire conflict all the time. It's kind of the way I frame it is, what do I want most, a value, versus what do I want now, a desire. And those are very difficult sometimes, but you can work through those. The harder type of conflict is the values to values conflict. When you value two things. If you have a family and a career that you value, you are familiar with this values conflict all the time. We call it work-life balance, right? And we want it to balance so we don't have to keep having it tug us in different directions. But the reality is that I don't think that ever goes away. It doesn't ever go away. But for me, when I recognize that and I can say, oh, look, this value is conflicting with this value, and I can name the stakes, doesn't necessarily mean I know exactly what to do. But I can relax a little bit because I go, oh, this is just totally normal that I'm going to feel this pull. And then I can think about, well, okay, how can I work with these? And I think of it less in my life these days as like this tension and pull, and more as sort of a dance. It's a little bit more of a dance between these different values. So yes, that's my not short answer.
Oh, well, thank you. That's good. Well, then in the universe of prompts, alignment, and resilience, do you have any favorite examples or tips and tricks, do's and don'ts for doing this well? Because I think in many ways, prompt is like, oh, okay, I could set a timer on my phone. That's handy. I'd love to hear what are some cool, creative, clever approaches to these bits.
Well, prompts can be lots of different things. The obvious one is time-based prompt. Something goes off on my phone at a certain time and it tells me to do X, Y, or Z. And these are really important. It's basically how we organize most of our lives, right? Oh, it's time to go to that meeting. It's time to eat dinner. It's time to go to bed, right? So that's one type of prompt. But there are also some others. And another is like a preceding event prompt. I do this, then I do that. So an example of this is I will spend 5 minutes meditating after I take the dogs for a walk. You take the dogs for a walk, ideally every day. It's something that consistently happens. You just bolt something onto it. That's a really good one. I think one of the terms in behavior science that is used for this sometimes is habit stacking. You're stacking one on top of the other. You need to make sure that what you're stacking it on is something that actually happens consistently. So we've got that kind of prompt. We can have a location-based prompt. We can be like, every time I come to a red light. Now, again, you're not going to be like, every time I come to a red light, it's time to get on my bike, right? But it could be if you're trying to change a way of thinking, like you've got a thought pattern. Every time I come to the red light, I could just reinforce the thoughts that I want to have. Every time I come to a red light, I will just spend 2 minutes thinking about like what's actually going well in my life. So those location-based prompts are also really valuable. So that's a couple different tips on prompts.
Okay. And then with regard to alignment, environmental setups, we got the guitar example, which is delightful. Any other good moves you've seen there?
Well, I think there's a basic principle we just want to keep in mind. And it's if we want to do more of something, make it easier. And you want to do less of it, make it harder. So it's the classic, if you don't want to eat junk food, don't have it in the house. Now, DoorDash and Uber Eats and delivery and all that has really made that one harder. But if it's just open the fridge and there the thing is, versus I maybe have to get in the car or I have to spend the time getting on an app. You just want to have friction, right? That's the basic idea. And you just want to get creative. Like, what can I do to make this easier? If I have trouble getting out the door in the morning, I could have all my gym clothes set out and right by the door. I could set the coffee to automatically brew 10 minutes before I get up. I mean, we could just do things to ease us along.
Mm-hmm.
And again, oftentimes we think of these and we go, it's so obvious it doesn't matter. But there's the guitar case example. And again, like I said, when I think about that, I'm like, that is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I just open a guitar case? That's dumb. But it is unquestionable that I do it more when it's sitting there.
Yes. And likewise with junk food, in terms of it, if it's there, I mean, I will eat it. It's even though I don't want to. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Try not to just make it harder. You know, I had a client for a while who was dealing with some issues with pornography, and it just wasn't what he wanted to do. And so we started and we were like, you know what? Let's have you log out of your computer before you go to bed. Well, that wasn't enough friction. Oh, let's have you power the computer off. Not enough friction. Where we ended up was, let's have you put your computer in your car before you go to bed. That was enough friction. It gave him enough time to think, do I want to do this? Right? And that is really valuable in that way. Here's an example of an environmental setup. So my digital tick, such as I have one, is checking my email too often. There's just no need to check my email as often as I sometimes will. So for me, what I have is a little app on my phone, and that when I click my email app, this other app pops up and it says, makes me take a deep breath and then asks me, do you want to do it? Very often my answer to that is no. I just was doing it automatically. So by introducing that little bit of environmental change, a little bit of friction, I go, no, I don't want to do it because it's given me a moment to contemplate.
Yeah, that's great. And then with regard to people, I mean, they can do that as well. Like I've had a friend say to me, hey, if you see me in this shared office space playing Xbox for more than 20 minutes, say, hey, looks like you've been playing for more than 20 minutes. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. And then he immediately shut it off. It was like, oh, like that's all it took was enough of a prompt. And she was like, oh yeah, you're right. I kind of totally zoned out. Now I'm zoned back in. So thank you. And we're done now.
Yeah. Find a friend to meet you at the gym. Find a friend to take a walk with you. Those are all people prompts. And we also, many of us may have a person prompt that's just no good for us also, right? The minute we see so-and-so, we know we're going to get in trouble that night.
Yeah. Understood. Okay. Well, now let's talk about these choice points where the rubber meets the road, the battle. Yeah, there's a thing. The time comes to do the thing. And by golly, you just don't want to. What do you do with that?
Yeah. So again, I want to stress the first part of this, the structural, the planning, the why I'm doing it. Like we need to do that. If we don't do it, we will lose at choice points far more often than we win. So we want to stack the deck. That's one thing almost all behavioral scientists would agree on is like, don't rely on self-control more than you have to. And self-control is the kind of thing that we need when it's that moment. So the good news about being at a choice point is that we don't have to analyze our whole life for why we're not doing something. We analyze that moment. And in the book, I have something I call the 6 saboteurs of self-control. But what I really did is I thought about like, what are the common things that are going on inside someone at the moment that they make the choice that the best part of them wishes they hadn't? I just discussed one, which is the autopilot. I'm not even choosing. It just happens automatically. I have my phone in my hand and I don't even know how it happened. Oh, I wasn't even thinking. And the next thing you know, I'm eating a Twinkie, right? Another one is, and I had this a lot with writing the book, it's around self-doubt. I really doubted my ability to write a good book. I mean, deep doubt. Brought up self-doubt I haven't had in a long, long time. And so what I would find is it's time to write, and I don't want to. There's resistance. And if I would examine what's going on in that moment, what I would realize it's some form of there's just this underlying, like, you're not any good at this. It's not going to go well. What's the point? You're not good enough to write a book, right? And so in that moment, I don't have to solve self-doubt because you can't in a lot of cases. All I have to do is turn it down enough to allow me to do the action. So I might say something to myself like, well, do you know that you can't write a good book? And the answer is, well, no, of course I don't know that. Even my most pessimistic self is like, well, we don't know. And sometimes I just go, okay, well, do you believe if you sit down and write that you'll get better at it and you'll have a better chance of writing a good book? And I'll go, yeah, I think so. And that would be enough, right? I don't have to suddenly believe that I am the next John Steinbeck in order to do it. I can't tell myself, you're an amazing writer, because I don't believe it. But I find what I can say to myself that gets me to do the action. So, there's another one, which is like emotional escapism. For whatever reason, when I get close to doing this thing, I just feel yucky inside. Okay, well, how can I work with that? How can I say, okay, well, what am I actually feeling? Oh, what I'm feeling is, I'm tired. Okay, well, how would I talk to myself if I'm tired? I might say, well, you know what? It's always hard getting started. Just get started, see what happens, and let's check in 5 minutes down the road, enough to get me started. So a lot of times in those moments, it's just, we've got to find out what to say to ourselves, how we coach ourselves to go in the direction we want. And most people have the experience of very often, once you start something, it gets easier to do. It's that initial friction. I've been watching this show about space, and every time I see a rocket launch, I think about this. I'm like, that's sometimes what it feels like to start something. You see, and you're like, they use so much energy to get the thing out of the atmosphere. Once it's free of the gravity of the Earth, it tends to go on its own. We're often the same way. I've got to get out of the gravity of the moment that's pulling me down. If I can start, then I go.
Yes. I've coached myself successfully a number of times in terms of, that just feels too hard. But sometimes even 5 minutes feels like too big of a commitment. And so it's like, you know what? I'm going to do 1 minute. I will do 1 minute, and then we'll see what happens. And that's enough.
I use that trick far more than I think I should, right? I'm like, I've hosted a podcast about this stuff for 12 years. I've coached hundreds of people around the world. I've written a book on this. Surely I don't need to do that. Well, yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Because it works. My one is, I keep talking about the Peloton bike because it's just a consistent thing, right? It's a big part of my workout routine, and I face resistance in the morning. So I'll just be like, just go put on your bike shoes. By the time I'm in there off the couch, I've escaped the gravitational pull of my couch. And now, I can take the next step and I can take the next step. I use that so often. And it's another example of the little by little principle, right? One idea is that you try and make a small change. The other is that you take a big change and you just try and bite off the littlest part of it to start.
Very good. Okay, so we've got 6 saboteurs. We've got 3. Let's hear some more.
Let's see. We've got the insignificance trap. This isn't where I so much doubt that I can do it. I doubt that it matters. And this is where I'm not connecting the dots of little bit by little bit, a little becomes a lot. My favorite story of this is I had someone I was good friends with, and she was an alcoholic addict also. And she tells this story, and she's totally serious. She's like, my landlord would come to me and say, you haven't paid the rent again. And yet here you are on the porch drinking a 6-pack. Why can't you take that money and put it towards the rent? And she would say, you dummy, I can't pay rent for the cost of a 6-pack. Like, she could not connect the dots in her mind that if she didn't do that every day, she would have a whole lot more money. It just didn't add up. And so that's often the way we are also. It's like, well, what does this one time matter? It's not going to go anywhere. I think finances, people fall into this. I know I have. Like, I made the mistake that we all caution every young person against, which is start early, saving. Well, I didn't. So what happens is, let's play that forward 15 years and my brain starts going, well, I didn't really start early enough. And so what I'm able to put away now, like, I'm not going to be able to get where I need to get. So I don't do it. Right? Which just then perpetuates the same problem. So that's a really big one. We have to kind of convince ourselves that the little things we do indeed add up to something more.
I like that a lot in the world of finance because I'm thinking about when I look at a recurring monthly expense, like a subscription or something. It's like, oh, it's whatever. It's $5 a month, whatever. And so I just now habitually rephrase that to it's $600 per decade.
Yeah.
So is it a decade from now, would I rather have $600 that has hopefully been invested and growing, or would I rather have that subscription?
Exactly. And then you start going, well, okay, well, does one matter? But you go, well, I got 5 of them. Okay, now we're talking about like $3,000. I mean, it is putting things into context. The other thing that's really helpful for me also is sometimes that works. Other times I have to say, like, what else could you do with that money? That's always a really helpful one. Like, oh, I'm spending $200 a month on this business system that does X, Y, or Z. Oh, I could take that $200 and I could put it into ads for the podcast. Oh, well, that might be even more valuable. So that's another one for me, is always recognizing, like, what am I trading it? What's the actual trade here?
Sure thing. And the other saboteurs?
Another is that we physically just don't feel good. And this one is, part of it is the response. Part of the response goes back to planning, right? Like it's the most obvious thing in the world, but most people don't obviously think of it, is that if you're going to do something in the morning, you actually have to start that process the night before. Because if you don't go to bed until 2 a.m, your odds of doing something at 6 are very low, right? So we could say that this tiredness is partially planning. We have a phrase in recovery: don't allow yourself to get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, because that will manifest for you as wanting to drink. And so I think we can look at this same thing, like, what is going on here? Am I too hungry? Well, do I need to eat? Sometimes we just need to take care of the physical stuff that's going on. Or again, back to tired. How do I learn to talk to myself through tired? And for me, that is usually a version of, it's always hardest at the beginning. Once you get going, you're going to feel better. You're going to be more into it. You're going to get energy from doing it. And so I talk myself through that physical state.
Okay. And then the last one?
Oh, yes. A classic one. I gave it the clever name of the short-sighted stumble, but basically it is the incredibly human tendency that says that I value what's happening right now way over something that's in the future. Researchers call this delay discounting. We're just not good at it as people. We're not good at going, oh, well, I want this little thing right now, but what I really want is this. So the short-sighted stumble, there's 2 ways to work with that. The first, for me, is to ask myself that question: what do I want most versus what do I want now? It puts it in time. That works for me a lot, because I go, well, what I want most actually is to be healthy. What I want now is to eat the ice cream. The other tool for this is another thing I learned early in recovery. We called it playing the tape all the way through. And it meant that for a lot of us, we just think about the first scene. Right. So if I go back to myself and drug addiction, what I'm playing through is how good it would feel to get high, or how bad I feel right now and how that would help that. But I got to keep going, because what's going to happen after that? Oh, well, about 5 minutes after that, what's going to happen is that all the shame and the fear are going to come rushing in. And then I'm going to want to get high even more, because how do I cope with shame and fear? It's by getting high. Oh, and how do I have the money to do that? Oh, I got to go steal something. Oh, well, you're looking at 50 years in prison already, right? I play it all the way through. And so we can do this with so many different things. Imagine you've got an issue where you scroll too long on Instagram in the morning, you end up being late for work. It's one thing to think, I should get off Instagram. You may have that thought vaguely. It's another thing to pause and go, okay, what's going to happen next? Oh, well, I'm going to end up in 15 minutes frantically rushing out the door, saying to myself, why do you always do this? Then I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to hate everybody on the road for going too slow. Then I'm going to get to work and I'm going to have to do that sort of awkward shuffle past my boss's office, hoping they don't see me. And then I'm going to sit there and wonder all morning, like, did I screw up again? Am I jeopardizing my career? When I think through that and I see it and I feel it, that's a lot more visceral than I should probably stop doing this. So that is the short-sighted stumble.
Very good. All right. Well, tell me, Eric, anything else you really want to make sure to mention before we hear about some of your favorite things?
I think the only thing I'll say about the book also is that the second half of the book is really about dealing with the sort of changes that happen to us and really about some of the ways that our mental attitudes shape our response to both change we're trying to make and change that happens to us. So in some ways, it's kind of two books in one.
Well, is there any kind of critical guiding light or mantra about that second piece you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think that it's that we've heard this before. I'm sure you've heard people say it. We are meaning-making machines, meaning we always are constructing meaning out of the facts of what happens. We don't see that. We just think the way we see it is the way it is. But learning to be able to question that is really valuable. And there's just three quick questions we can ask ourselves, right? The first is, what am I making this mean? It just recognizes that we are indeed constructing a meaning. And then what else could it mean? And then the final one is like, which of those two is most useful? So if I have a day where I'm writing and it goes really badly, at the end of the day, I could say to myself, see, I knew you couldn't write a book. You're not a good writer. This is never going to work, etc. I could also say, you know what? You just had a bad day. Everybody has bad days. You didn't sleep well last night. So that's the what else could it mean? Which meaning is more useful? Well, the one that says you had a bad day, try again tomorrow is far more useful. It's not necessarily even more true because the future is not written at that moment. It's not that one of those is true and the other isn't, but one of them is decidedly more useful than the other.
Big thanks to Eric for sharing his wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Shopify. When you're starting something new, what ifs abound. What if I fail? What if nobody cares? What if nobody buys my stuff? Shopify can help make things easy. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., from household names like Magic Spoon and Allbirds to brands just getting started. Shopify facilitates everything from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to use a dozen different software tools. Everything's all in one place, making your life easier and your operations smoother. And what if you get stuck? Well, Shopify is always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. It's time to turn those what-ifs into ka-ching with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/awesomepod. Go to shopify.com/awesomepod. That's shopify.com/awesomepod. Ka-ching. One sponsor to check out is Scribe. When your team is trying to become more awesome at their job, unclear processes can create enormous friction. We all want to do great work, but poor documentation, lacking knowledge transfer, and mixed messages mean teams are totally in the dark on how things actually get done. Scribe is a workflow AI platform that captures any workflow in real time and turns it into step-by-step documentation automatically. That's right, you don't have to do anything. No manual writing, no screen sharing videos, nothing. So cool. Scribe is trusted by over 80,000 enterprises, including nearly half of the Fortune 500. I've spent literally hours pulling together checklists and screen shares to communicate processes, but with Scribe, I just turn on the extension and it captures every click, step, and screenshot automatically to build a complete guide as I go. It also automatically redacts sensitive information, provides real-time step-by-step guidance inside the actual tool, and even suggests ways to improve the workflow itself. Building an awesome team starts with making sure everyone knows how to do the work, and Scribe makes that effortless. Book a personalized enterprise demo by visiting scribe.how/awesome. That's SCRIBE.HOW/awesome.
The most effective people at work aren't working harder than everyone else. They're working smarter inside better systems. Superhuman Go, from the makers of Grammarly, is the AI chat that works inside every tool you already use. Always ready and already aware of what you're working on. It's a teammate whose only job is to help you be better at yours. With Go working with you, you can show off what you do best. See what Superhuman Go can do at superhuman.com. That's superhuman.com.
Beautiful, thank you. Well, now could you share with us a favorite quote, something you found inspiring?
It's a line from a song, and the song is called My Mind's Got a Mind of Its Own. It's by Jimmy Dale Gilmore, and I love that phrase, my mind's got a mind of its own, because it points to this fact that we do want multiple different things. We are motivationally complex creatures. And I just think it's a clever way of making that obvious. And it's part of the reason I've done a podcast on a parable of two wolves inside of us for so long is because that feeling of being pulled in different directions is really, really natural and normal.
And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
My favorite is probably the rat park experiments.
All right.
It's basically, there were a bunch of studies done that showed that if you give a rat heroin or cocaine, and it's a rat in a cage, it will take those drugs till it dies, which tells us the basic idea is how terrible those drugs are. And this is really the way it was used particularly in the 80s, the war on drugs. But there was a researcher named Bruce Alexander who asked a question. He said, well, what if the problem isn't the drugs, but it's the cage? And so he basically constructed what he called Rat Park, which was like a paradise for rats. Lots of other rats to hang out with, lots of room to run around, fun things to do. And what he found was that most of the rats, not all of them, but most of the rats moved away from a constant heroin cocaine addiction to a normal life. Now, some remain addicts, just like there's addicts in every population. But it really pointed to the important role that our environment plays in what we do.
Yeah. And a favorite book?
My favorite book it's called The Brothers K, and not the Brothers Karamazov, which is the Russian novel by Dostoevsky. It's called The Brothers K, and it's by an American writer called David James Duncan. And it is a fiction book, and it's a family saga epic, and it's still my favorite novel 30 years after I read it, probably.
Okay. And a favorite tool?
My favorite tool is that little app I shared on my phone that allows me to sort of cause myself to pause before I do something.
And what's it called?
ClearSpace.
Okay. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with clients? They quote it back to you often?
A little bit of something is better than a lot of nothing.
And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
oneyoufeed.net. That's oneyoufeed.net. You can find the book, the podcast, our weekly newsletter, all things related to what we do.
And you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Keep thinking about what really matters. Keep thinking about what adds the most value. Can I share a quick story on that? Okay. So when I started the podcast, I was leading really large software projects, $150, $200 million software projects. And I all of a sudden had this side job that I wanted to give all my time to. And so I had this real challenge because my professional career was really, really demanding. And what I found out was something really interesting is that the more time I spent thinking about what really matters in this project being successful, what really matters in this software release, what really matters. And I was doing that because I wanted to spend more time doing this other thing. I got better at what I did. I was spending less time doing it, and yet I got better at it. And it was because I was so focused on what is the most important thing here. We do so many things every day that don't actually really make that much difference. And by being ruthlessly focused on what did, I became better at my job while freeing up time to do something else.
All right. Eric, thank you.
Thank you so much, Pete. It's wonderful to see you and talk to you again.
I love so much about what Eric has to say about the friction, and with the guitar out of the case, he's doing 30% more guitar. And it seems just so silly. Surely I am not that primitive that this minor seconds difference of effort would matter in doing a thing, and yet it does so much. I have all these iPhone shortcuts set up so that I can immediately launch into a breathing exercise or prayer or something, because having to open up the iPhone and tap something 6 times to get it launched is just so hard. I know it's not really, and yet it's like a surprise magic trick every time. When something is super easy as compared to just kind of easy, I still do more of that thing. So huge pro tip from Eric, highly recommended. So if you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, I recommend you drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1162. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.